Hey guys, this is Andrew with rockclass101.com, and in this mini lesson, I'm going to be teaching you a really fun funk riff. Now, let's talk about this riff because we just heard it being played by the guitar player, then the ukulele player, and then together as a duet. So it brings up a good question, which is, are they playing the exact same riff? Well, the answer is yes and no. They are playing the same notes, but the ukulele player is playing those notes up an octave, so a little bit higher up in pitch. Now, this tune, we're going to have a backing track that you can download, so if you want to play it in that duet setting with the guitar player, you'll be able to do that. But I will say that it is equally just as fun to play as a solo standalone ukulele piece. So let's take a step back. Let's talk a little bit about this lesson. So in this video, I'm going to be teaching you how to play the entire riff, but if you want to get the tabs to print off and follow along with, that's going to be available at this link right here, or you can go to the site rockclass101.com, do a search for ML020, that is the lesson number for this lesson. Now also on that page will be the really cool interactive on-screen tab viewer. Now this is a great feature where you can hit play, you can watch the tabs scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down to any speed you wish, just a great asset in learning a riff like this that much easier. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into learning how to play this, but there are a few things we need to talk about first. And the big elephant in the room is, can we play this on high G or low G? And the answer is both, because we will not be using the fourth string at all for this riff. So you can feel free to grab your low G or your high G ukulele. Now the second thing I want to talk about is the right hand playing style. Now funk music tends to have a lot of rhythm to it. So it's going to be really challenging in terms of what our right hand is doing. And for this riff, what I've done is I have adapted it to match my playing style. So the way I'm going to teach you how to play it in terms of what our right hand is doing, mostly strumming technique and percussive technique, is what suits my playing style. So let's do this. Let's put up the first line of tab, or the first measure. And I'm going to put a box around the three percussive hits that we have. These three percussive hits, you can think of them as the spice on food. They kind of add a little bit of kick to the melody. So these three percussive hits, they are not mandatory. You can feel free to include them or remove them or add your own in other places in the measure. Because if I put a box around the melodic notes, that is what is actually really important. The key for learning this riff is that we have to play the melody notes on the beats that they fall on. So the percussive elements that you're adding, the chunks, the slap, the muted down and up strums, those can be optional and you can add it to taste. So what's really key is that you get the melody notes on the correct beats. So let me do this. Let me go ahead and play just this first bar, and then we'll break it down and learn it. So that's a good gist of what our first measure sounds like. Now, the thing that we want to start with is just learning the melody notes that we're playing. So if we take a look at the melody notes that we're playing, we can see that we have only three notes. We have 7 on string 2, and then 5 to 6 on string 1. Okay? So the key thing here is that we want to get this melody ingrained in our membrane. So you want to be able to sing it out. Da da ba da ba 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 da. You can even call out the hits. So for example, you could call out sev for 7, and then instead of 5, 6, let's call it out as hammer on. So we have, or simply hammer. So sev, sev, hammer, sev, 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 hammer. So that's a really good way to kind of get this melody kind of stuck in our brain from a rhythmic perspective, because if we can sing it, we can play it. So let's start with our ring finger on the 7th fret of string 2, and we're going to go ahead and play that note twice. Okay, then I'm going to use my index finger to play 5 and hammer on to 6 on string 1. So I have sev, sev, hammer. Now my right hand is going to be using my thumb to pluck string 2 and my middle finger to pluck string 1. So very simple. Let's try those first opening 4 notes. So sev, sev, hammer. Here we go. Ready, go. Sev, sev, hammer. Nice. So not too bad so far. Now, we come across our first percussive hit. So let's take a look at what's happening. We can see 4 X's, that represents our percussive hit, but above those 4 X's we see an S. So the S means slap. So when we're doing a slap technique, we want to come straight down onto the strings. So this is the motion that we're going. We're going straight down. It's very different from the motion of a chunk or a chuck. The motion of a chunk or a chuck follows a down strum. It goes this way. Right? But for a slap, we don't want to do that. We don't want to go this way. We want to go straight down. Now, when we go straight down, watch my thumb. I'm coming straight down onto the strings, and look where my thumb ends up. It ends up on string 2, in position ready to pluck, because look at what happens right after this slap. I've got to pluck 7 immediately after it. So I want to be in position when I come down with the slap to be able to pluck immediately after. Okay? So putting that together, I have sev, sev, hammer, slap, sev. Let's try it together. Ready, go. Sev, sev, hammer, slap, sev. One more time. Sev, sev, hammer, slap, sev. Awesome. Now, if you're new to doing this slap technique, then you want to jump into this lesson. I cover it in a little bit more detail. I'll also link it in the description box below. Now, if we take a look at what happens after that, we can see that we have 2 more melody notes, which are 7, and then we have 1 more hammer on. Okay, so instead of playing that in and of itself, let's go back to the beginning of this measure and let's see if we can add it and play it in its musical context. It's going to make a lot more sense trying to play this bar in its entirety than trying to segment it. So it sounds like this. So we have sev, sev, hammer, slap, sev, 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 hammer. Let's see if we can do that together. Ready, go. Nice. Now, if any of these playbacks are too fast for you, feel free to use the cog in the YouTube player to slow it down. Now, to do the last 2 hits of this measure, we are going to be doing 2 different techniques. So if we look at the first one, we can see that it has a C above. That C means chunk, and below the C we have a down arrow strum. So we're going to do a regular chunk, if I don't miss. So just a regular down strum chunk. And then after it, if you look above, you see no S, no C. We just see an up arrow strum. So that means a muted up strum. So if you see just a down or up arrow strum without any C or S above it, that means that you're going to be doing a muted strum. Okay? So we either have a slap, a chunk, or a muted strum for this tune. So for finishing up this measure, we're going to do a down chunk and then an up strum. And that's it. So again, let's take it from the top and let's see if we can play the entire measure because it makes the most sense put together. So it sounds like this. All right, let's give it a shot. 1, 2, here we go. Nice. So pretty cool stuff so far. Not too challenging, because when we get into measure 2, that's where I think the real challenge of this riff comes into play. So let's take a look at measure number 2. So off the bat, we can see a ton of percussive hits. So let's do this. Let's just get rid of them for right now. And what we want to do is we want to learn just this melody in and of itself. So the melody is actually going to be 5 positions. And these 5 positions are just an octave shape that moves down the neck. So if we start on 9 on string 3 with your index and 12 on string 1 with your pinky, we can just pluck that. We can consider this position 1. Go down a half step to 8 and 11. We can pluck that, consider that position number 2. Go down a whole step to 6 and 9. That's position number 3. down another whole step to 4 and 7. That's position number 4. And then position 5, we can consider this slide as just one position, so 5. So we're going to go 2, 5, up a half step to 3 and 6. So for right now, you just want to get comfortable playing through those 5 positions. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? Don't worry about rhythm or trying to play the melody as it relates to the tune. You just want to get comfortable going between those 5 positions. That's really the goal. Now, I taught private lessons for 11 years, and I saw a lot of folks struggle when they had to move a static position down the neck. So static meaning there's always these 2 frets in between your fretted fingers, right? So I saw when people move down, a lot of times like this finger would get in the wrong fret, right? So watch out for that as you're practicing this. Make sure that you're keeping this shape intact as you move down. Now, when you feel comfortable with that, we can start to add in that rhythm. So again, we can just aim to sing it out. Da da ba 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 da ba dum ba 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 da. So you just want to be able to get in the ballpark, get in the vicinity of playing it like that. Da 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 ba ba da. So kind of get that stuck in your membrane. Okay? So when you feel comfortable with that, we can go ahead and add in all of these percussive hits again. Now, here's the big question. How do we play these 2 notes but use a strumming technique throughout this measure, right? Because if we strum all 4 strings, we're going to hear more than what we want to hear, which is just this octave shape, right? So the trick is muting. So if you look at my index finger, the very tip of my index finger is going to touch string 4, and that's going to mute string 4. And then I have a bit of a curve going right here, and I'm lightly touching string 2. So I'm not pushing down flat like you would with a bar chord, right? Instead, I have a little bit of a curve so that I'm lightly touching string 2 to mute it. So that means that when I'm fretting the 3rd string note, I'm fretting right here. I'm not fretting on the fingertip, I'm fretting quite a bit below the fingertip. So this is a really tricky thing to do. This is muting 2 strings at the same time with 1 finger. If this is the first time you've done it, don't get frustrated. It takes a lot of practice to get comfortable and to get proficient at this technique. But it is a valuable technique because when you go to strum, whoops, if I don't strum bad, I can only hear those 2 strings ringing out. I don't hear the 2 that I don't want to hear. So that's why muting is really important for this section, because if I play this bar in its entirety, I'm going to use that strumming technique throughout. So it sounds like this. Okay, one more time. So muting is vital for this measure. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and learn how to play it. So we're starting in position 1, 9 and 12, and we're going to do a down strum, and then we're going to follow it with a chunk, and while we do that chunk, we need to move down to position number 2, and then give me an up strum. So I have down, chunk, up. Okay, so down, chunk, up. After that, I'm going to do 2 muted strums, down, up, and while I'm doing those muted strums, my left hand moves down to position number 3, and then I'm going to follow it up with a down strum on that position. So all together I have down, chunk, up, mute, mute, down. Let's try together. Here we go. Ready, go. One more, go. Nice. Continuing on to beat number 3, we have literally the same thing as beat number 2, with the only difference being that we're going to chunk on the first muted hit, and then do a muted up strum, and then while we're doing that, we have to move down to position 4 and give me a down strum. So the only difference here is that we're doing a chunk for that first one. So we have chunk, up, down. Okay? Now to finish up beat 4, that's position 5. Remember, it's the slide. So go ahead and give me that slide with a down strum, and then follow it up with a chunk and a muted up strum. So we have down, chunk, up. So beat 3 and 4 is chunk up, down, ba-da, chunk up. Okay, so again, chunk up, down, ba-da, chunk up. Now, I think it's kind of confusing musically to play this from beat 3 and 4. Again, this is a tune that it makes the most sense when you play the measure in its entirety. So let's see if we can try that. That's what it sounds like. And if we call it out, down, chunk up, mute, mute, down, chunk up, down, ba-da, chunk up. Okay? Let me loop it, see if you can join in with me. So, a little bit tricky to do. Definitely a little bit tricky. This is the hardest measure of the tune, but really, really cool when you get it down. Now, here's the beauty. When we get to measure number 3, take a look at what happens. It's exactly identical to measure number 1. So we already know how to play this measure. Let's go ahead and skip right on over it. And let's look at the last measure of this riff. Measure number 4, if we just glance at it, we see a ton of zeros. There's actually 9 zeros. So it's just the open A. And then the very last note is the 2nd fret of string 1. So what we want to do right here, let's cover up these 2 percussive hits. We just want to get this melody down, and we can just finger pick it for right now. And we just want to get that ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. We just want to get that melody stuck in our brain. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So remember, if you can sing it, you can play it. So just hit pause, see if you can get that down. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay? Now, here's the thing. We really don't want to use plucking technique when we get to this bar, because we want to have it sound more like the funk percussive kind of. We want to, when we think of funk genre, it's kind of it's very in your face. It's very like groove. It's feel good music. It's like makes you want to get up out of your seat and actually dance, right? So we don't really have a lot of energy if we go. Right? It's just kind of very flat. So we want it to be played with a strumming technique. So it should sound like this. You can hear that note already pops, has more brightness, it has more energy, it's louder, it's so much more fitting to the genre of funk music. So here's what I'm doing. I'm doing a down strum using the nail of my middle and ring finger, just for that open A, right? Then I'm using an up strum using just the nail of my thumb. So I'm going down, up. So for right now, you can just keep the A string steady. And just practice that technique using the nails of those fingers to go down and up. So we're kind of mimicking a strum technique, but on one string. Now, I will say this, it's not always the easiest to do this technique and only hit one string. If you hit the E string on accident, don't worry about it. It's not going to sound out of tune, and it's not really a big deal. So if you're playing it and you can hear that E string ring out a few times on accident, not a big deal. Don't sweat it at all. So let's see now if we can use that technique to play that melody. So we're going to follow the down and up strums that you see on the tab. So we have down, up, down, up, 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 down, 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 up, down, up, down, up, down, down. All right, so that's what you want to get down. Now, the last thing that we can do is we can remove these boxes and we can add in that little percussive hit. Now, I wrote it as a slap. It's kind of like a chunk slap, kind of hybrid thing going on. It's more just to taste. It's just a way to add just a little bit of extra spice to this measure. So it sounds like this. So it's not a huge difference. So I'm going to go ahead and say that if you want to leave these out and just play it as the melodic notes in and of itself, you can do that. If you want to add in this little slap, then let's give that a shot. So I'm going down, slap, up, down, down. So when I'm coming down with this slap, it's almost like it's muting the string. So just to kind of give it almost like a little staccato-y blip here in these two spots. Down, up. So when I come down, I'm literally just using like the palm of my hand just to touch the string to mute it. And you can see where my thumb is. My thumb is below the string because after I mute it, I got to come up with that up hit of the open A. Down, up, slap, up, down, 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 up, slap, up, down, down. So a little bit tricky to add that little percussive hit in there. So again, it's optional. If you like it, add it. If not, then just keep it all with the melodic notes. Not a big deal. But that's everything for this entire riff, guys. So let me do this. Let me go ahead and just play through all 4 bars, and this is what we end up with. So really cool when you do get it down and up to speed. And you can hear my playing was not perfect at all. I want to go ahead and reiterate with this funk music, it's okay if it's not perfect, right? We're not a robot. We just want it to feel good and be fun to play, right? So we want our timing to be pretty close to being spot on. But if you have a little bit of extra notes ringing out or your chunks aren't super clean, it's not a big deal. It makes it more real and raw in how it sounds. So that's everything for this lesson, guys. I hope you did enjoy learning it with me. I want to give you a friendly reminder that if you do want to get the tabs to print off and keep for your records, that was available at this link right here. Or you can go to the site, rockclass101.com, do a search for ML020. That is the lesson number for this lesson. Don't forget too, on that page was the really cool interactive on-screen tab viewer. So you can literally hit play, you can loop bars, you can highlight sections to loop bars. You can slow it down to any speed. It's just a really great tool for learning this riff that much easier. And last but not least, I want to go ahead and say too that we will have the backing tracks available for download. So I'm going to upload 100% speed and 75% speed. So when you do learn the riff, if you want to play along with the guitar player, you can do that and turn it into a duet. So guys, again, I hope you enjoyed this lesson and I will catch you in the next one. Take care.